What if one of the most dramatic ideas humanity has ever imagined has been misunderstood from the very beginning? We've all heard the story in one form or another. A great event where people are suddenly taken away, lifted, or separated from the rest of the world. It shows up in novels, films, and conversations that speculate about a day when everything changes. Some describe it as a vanishing. Others picture it as the skies opening. Almost everyone imagines it as something external, something happening to us, outside our control. Here's the problem with that. This way of looking at the rapture leaves us powerless. It trains us to wait for the extraordinary instead of engaging with the extraordinary potential already inside of us. People spend lifetimes scanning the news, analyzing patterns, and wondering if today is the day, while the real event, the real transformation, is quietly waiting within them. By focusing on an external drama, we've been distracted from the internal revolution. The solution is hidden in plain sight. The rapture isn't about being snatched away to another place. It's about being lifted into another state of being. It's not about leaving Earth, it's about leaving behind limitation. It's not about the world ending, it's about your consciousness expanding. Think about it. Human beings have always been captivated by grand predictions. Every culture throughout history has had some version of an apocalyptic tale. People looked for signs in the stars, in unusual weather patterns, or in sudden shifts in society. These stories gain traction because they offer both fear and hope. Fear of destruction, hope of deliverance. But if this dramatic event were really about people suddenly disappearing, why has it never happened in the way the stories describe? Generations have come and gone. Predictions have been made and failed. Each time the date passes, new theories emerge, and the cycle repeats. The more important question is, what if the real event was never meant to be observed with the eyes, but to be experienced within the mind and heart? The very word rapture carries a clue. Its roots point to the idea of being seized or caught up. On the surface, this looks like being pulled away from one place into another. But in deeper contexts, caught up describes a state of ecstasy, of being lifted beyond ordinary perception. Think of a moment when you felt completely absorbed in something, so immersed that time disappeared. Maybe it was listening to music that moved you beyond words, standing before a breathtaking view, or falling in love. In those moments, you weren't physically carried anywhere, but your state of being was profoundly lifted. That is the hidden meaning of being caught up. The rapture, then, is not a vanishing act. It is a radical change in perspective. The danger of misunderstanding it is that it encourages waiting. People postpone their growth because they expect a cosmic rescue. They put transformation on hold, telling themselves that the big event will do the work for them. But waiting has a cost. Each day spent anticipating something external is a day not spent cultivating inner expansion. Imagine sitting on a dock, staring at the horizon, waiting for a ship that never arrives, while behind you is a boat with oars already tied to the post, waiting for you to climb in and row. The truth is, the rapture is not a ship coming to save you. It is the oar in your hands. The shift begins the moment you decide to use it. We don't even need prophecies to understand this. Nature has been teaching us all along. A caterpillar doesn't just sprout wings and fly away. It dissolves into pure potential inside its cocoon and emerges as something completely new. A seed doesn't stretch slowly into a flower, cracks open, breaking its old form to release hidden life. Even stars don't simply fade away. They collapse and explode into light so intense it seeds new worlds. These are not just poetic images. They are patterns showing us what the rapture truly represents. It isn't about escape, it's about transformation. Every pattern in nature echoes this truth. If the rapture is transformation, not escape, how do we step into it? The answer is not in waiting but in cultivating alignment. Everything is energy. Thoughts, emotions, and intentions all vibrate at frequencies that shape our experience. When we shift those frequencies upward, we experience a kind of rapture. Fear dissolves, clarity expands, and we feel lifted. Expansion of consciousness is the next step. This means recognizing that reality is layered, that we are more than just physical beings. Expansion opens us to insights, intuition, and deeper connection. And then comes integration. Transformation isn't just for meditation cushions or rare mystical states. The real measure of the rapture is how it changes the way we show up in daily life, how we speak, love, work, and create. Each moment lived in greater awareness is a step into the hidden rapture. Here's the most important part. The rapture isn't waiting in the future. It's already available in the present moment. When you shift from fear to love, that is a micro-rapture. When you forgive instead of holding on, that is a micro-rapture. When you suddenly see the bigger picture of your life, that is a micro-rapture. Add these together moment by moment, and you are already living the transformation people once thought they had to wait for. No one has to be left behind because no one is excluded. The choice is personal, moment by moment, breath by breath. So we return to the beginning. The problem was the story. The rapture has been presented as an external event, leaving people powerless and waiting. The solution is the hidden truth. The rapture is not an escape. It is an awakening. It is the universal pattern of transformation, already reflected in nature, language, and human experience. The rapture is not the end of the world. It is the end of illusion. It is not about being taken away. It is about waking up. It is not a single day on a calendar. It is every moment you choose awareness over fear, love over separation, expansion over stagnation. And that means something incredible. You don't have to wait. You don't have to watch the horizon or search for signs. The real rapture is the shift of consciousness available right now, in the life you are already living. The only question is whether you will choose to step into it. What if the very word that so many people have built expectations around never meant what we think it does? Hidden inside the language we use every day are clues that point us toward deeper truths. Yet most of the time we accept the surface meaning without asking what lies beneath. The idea of being taken up or caught away has shaped countless imaginations. But what if that language was never pointing to an external rescue at all? What if it was pointing to an inner awakening that has been available to every human being since the beginning of time? Words are not just labels. They are vessels carrying energy, history, and hidden meaning. They shape how we see reality, how we describe our experiences, and even how we imagine what's possible. Take the word rapture. On the surface, it paints a picture of separation, a pulling away from one place into another. But peel back the layers, and the meaning deepens. At its root, it describes a state of ecstasy, of being swept up in a higher experience of existence. This is not about geography. It is about consciousness. It is not about being moved to a new location but being elevated into a new perception. You have felt this before. Even if you didn't have the words for it, you know what it means to be caught up. Think back to a time when music moved through you so deeply that your mind went silent and only the rhythm remained. Or the moment you stood before a horizon so vast that you forgot yourself for an instant, overwhelmed by wonder. Or the instant you held a newborn baby, looked into its eyes, and realized you were staring into infinity. In those moments, you were lifted, seized, caught up in something bigger than thought. That is what rapture truly is. Not a future event, not an external drama, but a shift in awareness so powerful that it feels like being taken into another world even though your feet never leave the ground. The language we use has kept this truth hidden. Because when people hear the words caught up, they imagine altitude, not attitude. They imagine bodies rising into the sky, not consciousness rising into its true nature. This small misunderstanding has created lifetimes of waiting and watching when the invitation was always to turn inward. The real ascent is not measured in miles but in moments of awareness. Consider how different traditions across history have spoken of the same transformation. In ancient teachings, to awaken meant to move beyond the illusions of separation. In meditative traditions, to become enlightened was to step into a light already shining within. In mystical circles, to know the hidden essence of reality was to enter gnosis, a direct experience of truth. Each of these words, awakening, enlightenment, gnosis, echoes the same phenomenon. They are describing what we now call the rapture. A shift in consciousness so profound that your entire experience of reality changes. This pattern of language shows us something remarkable. Cultures that never met, separated by continents and centuries, all arrived at the same idea. They spoke of rising, of being lifted, of entering ecstasy. None of them meant a vanishing act. All of them meant a transformation of perception. The universality of these descriptions suggests that the rapture is not the property of one story or one tradition. It is a human potential woven into the fabric of our being. Why does this matter? Because words direct our imagination. If we believe the rapture means escape, then we wait. We postpone our growth, imagining that a single day will do the work for us. But if we reclaim its deeper meaning, then the rapture becomes something we can practice every day. It becomes a living process instead of a future fantasy. Every time we allow ourselves to be seized by wonder, every time we surrender to love so complete it dissolves fear, every time we lose ourselves in creativity so fully that time disappears, we are tasting rapture. These are not distractions from the real event. These are the event. Think about how often language limits our perspective. People say things like, "I need to rise above this situation," but what they truly mean is that they need to expand their awareness until the problem no longer defines them. They say, "I'm on cloud 9," but what they mean is that they are lifted into joy beyond ordinary concerns. We use the language of ascent to describe inner states because deep down we know that rising is not a matter of altitude but of alignment. The word rapture, then, is not pointing us to a day of mass disappearance. It is pointing us to a possibility of inner elevation. To be seized, to be caught up, is to be so overcome by a higher frequency of being that the old way of seeing dissolves. Suddenly, what used to feel like walls becomes transparent. What used to feel heavy becomes light. What used to feel like despair becomes possibility. That is not mythology. That is human experience. And here is the beauty of it. This language reminds us that the extraordinary is not reserved for rare moments. It is always one shift of awareness away. The same way a radio can tune from one station to another without moving an inch, your consciousness can tune from fear to love, from confusion to clarity, from separation to unity. The rapture is not about relocation. It is about retuning. This reframing liberates us. Instead of anxiously waiting for a mysterious event, we realize that the event is happening all the time in different ways in different lives. The invitation is not to look to the skies but to look to the inner horizon of your own being. Language, once clarified, becomes a map, points you inward. It tells you the real secret, that the shift has always been within reach. Imagine how different life would feel if we lived with this understanding. Instead of fearing an unknown day, we would celebrate the countless small ascents happening right now. Instead of waiting to be taken away, we would cultivate practices that allow us to be lifted every single day. Meditation becomes rapture. Acts of kindness become rapture. Creative flow becomes rapture. Deep connection becomes rapture. Each one a moment of being seized by something greater, each one a reminder that we are more than our limitations. The hidden truth is that the word itself has been guiding us all along. It was never about vanishing from the world, but about vanishing from illusion. It was never about being taken up into the sky, but about being taken up into a higher state of being. When we understand the language, we understand the invitation. The rapture is not later. The rapture is now. And so we arrive at a turning point. The story of the rapture has been told as if it were an external drama scripted in the stars. But the language itself, when traced back to its essence, tells us something else. It tells us that to be raptured is to be transformed, to be lifted in consciousness, to be carried into an awareness so alive and so expansive that it feels like another world. The mistake has been to expect the extraordinary outside, when the extraordinary is already within. That is the hidden power of words. They shape not only how we talk but how we live. By reclaiming the true meaning of the rapture, we reclaim our agency. We no longer wait for rescue. We step into transformation. We no longer fear the unknown day. We embrace the present moment. We no longer look outward. We awaken inward. And when that happens, the language no longer feels symbolic. It feels literal. You are seized by love. You are carried away by joy. You are caught up in awareness so vast it feels infinite. That is the rapture unveiled, the language of transformation understood at last. For as long as people have spoken of a great transformation, the most popular image has been the same. Human beings suddenly lifted from the ground, rising into the air, vanishing into the skies. It is a picture so striking that it has inspired countless works of fiction, fueled endless speculation, and anchored the imagination of entire generations. It is dramatic, it is cinematic, and it is, in many ways, misleading, because while the image captures attention, it distracts from the essence. The idea of a literal, physical event where people are plucked from the earth has been treated as the final truth, when in reality it was always a metaphor, a symbol pointing beyond itself. Think of it like looking at a painting of the ocean. From a distance, the image is stunning. The blues shimmer, the waves curl across the canvas, the light glints off the surface. You can admire it for hours, but no matter how long you stare, you will never feel the salt on your skin or the current tugging at your body. The painting is beautiful, but it is not the ocean. In the same way, the physical interpretation of the rapture is like that painting. It is a surface-level representation of something real, but it is not the experience itself. To stop at the painting is to miss the water entirely. And yet, it is easy to see why people cling to the physical image. It is dramatic, and the human mind loves drama. A sudden disappearance feels like proof that something extraordinary has happened. A spectacle in the sky feels undeniable. But what if that very fascination with the spectacle has kept us from diving into the deeper truth? What if the lifting into the air was never about altitude at all, but about a state of consciousness so elevated that it feels as though the ground has disappeared beneath you? The physical story is appealing because it seems simple. One moment you are here, the next moment you are gone. But life has shown us that real transformation is rarely that simple. Think about the times you have experienced true change. Did it happen in an instant, like a lightning strike? Sometimes yes, but more often it was a process. A buildup of small moments that suddenly tipped into something new. A gradual unfolding that eventually felt like a leap. The external image of bodies rising misses that deeper reality. It collapses the entire journey into a single frame, and in doing so, it robs us of the beauty of the process. Here is where the misunderstanding takes root. People here caught up and imagine a vertical movement. They imagine breaking the laws of gravity. But the real meaning of being caught up is not physical relocation. It is elevation of awareness. To be caught up is to be seized by a higher perception, to be drawn into a dimension of experience beyond the ordinary. You don't need wings to experience it. You don't need to leave the earth to touch it. It is available every time you allow yourself to step out of the smallness of fear and into the vastness of love. This is why clinging to the physical story creates so much anxiety. If the rapture is only a physical event, then the question becomes, will I be taken or will I be left behind? But if the rapture is an inner transformation, then the question changes completely. It becomes, am I willing to awaken or will I choose to remain asleep? That is a much more empowering question, because the answer does not depend on an external event. It depends on you. Look at nature for confirmation. When water heats, it does not simply vanish from the pot. It reaches a threshold and transforms into steam. When a caterpillar enters its cocoon, it does not simply grow wings on its old body. It dissolves, becoming something unrecognizable before it reforms as a butterfly. These are not disappearances. They are transformations. The physical form changes so radically that it appears to have vanished, but what has actually happened is an elevation into a new state. The physical interpretation of the rapture captures only this outer appearance and misses the inner process that makes it meaningful. By reducing the rapture to a spectacle in the sky, we make it into entertainment. It becomes something to watch, something to fear, something to argue about. But the true invitation was never about spectacle. It was about participation. It was not about watching something happen, but about becoming something new. The physical story has always been a disguise, a symbolic entry point designed to capture imagination and then lead it inward. The tragedy is that many stopped at the image and never took the next step. So how do we reclaim the symbol? We start by recognizing that the sky itself is a metaphor. The sky is what we look to when we want to feel expanded, limitless, free. To imagine being lifted into the sky is to imagine being freed from the heaviness of limitation, from the gravity of fear. The ground represents the ordinary, the weight of conditioning, the pull of survival. The sky represents liberation. Rising into the sky, then, is not about physics. It is about perception. It is about letting your awareness rise beyond the pull of old patterns until you feel as though you are soaring, even while your body remains firmly rooted to the earth. And here is the beauty. This shift does not require waiting for an appointed day. It is available in every moment. The instant you release an old belief that no longer serves you, you rise. The instant you forgive someone who hurt you, you rise. The instant you see through the illusion of separation and feel your connection to everything around you, you rise. This is the true meaning of the physical symbol. It is a pointer to a reality that can happen now, not later. Imagine telling a caterpillar that its destiny is to one day float into the sky. If it takes that literally, it may sit on a leaf, staring at the horizon, waiting for the moment when invisible hands will pluck it away. But the truth is far more profound. The caterpillar will not be carried off. It will become something that flies. That is the real rapture. Not to be taken away, but to awaken into what you already have the potential to be. When we understand this, the fear dissolves. There is no more anxiety about being left behind. No more need to argue about timing. No more obsession with signs and predictions. Because the real question is not, when will it happen? The real question is, am I willing to allow it to happen within me? The physical story, once seen as a symbol, becomes a doorway instead of a distraction. It invites us to step beyond literalism and into transformation. And this changes everything. Instead of staring at the skies, you begin to explore your inner landscape. Instead of fearing the end, you begin to embrace the new beginning already unfolding within you. Instead of waiting to be chosen, you realize you are choosing yourself right now. Every time you align with love over fear, clarity over confusion, unity over separation, the physical interpretation has served its purpose, captured imagination, kept the story alive. But its real power is as a symbol in disguise, a metaphor pointing beyond itself, a painting pointing to the ocean. Once you understand this, you no longer stand before the painting longing to dive in. You step into the water itself, and that water is consciousness. That ocean is transformation. That immersion is the true rapture. If everything is energy, then the mystery of the rapture becomes much easier to understand. Modern science, ancient wisdom, and direct human experience all agree on one thing. The universe is not made of solid matter, but of vibrating fields. Every atom hums with motion. Every thought sends a wave into the invisible. Every emotion radiates at its own frequency. To live is to vibrate. To transform is to shift that vibration. And to experience what has long been called the rapture is nothing more, and nothing less, than to raise your frequency into a new dimension of being. Most people imagine reality as fixed and unchangeable. The table is solid, the body is dense, the world is heavy and immovable. But the deeper we look, the more we see that solidity is an illusion. The table is mostly empty space, a dance of particles vibrating at incredible speeds. The body is a field of energy held together by patterns. Even thoughts, which feel so private, are measurable as frequencies in the brain. Nothing is fixed. Everything is motion. Everything is vibration. Once you understand this, the idea of being lifted up stops being strange. It no longer requires angels or spaceships or vanishing acts. It requires only a shift of frequency. Imagine tuning a radio. At one setting, you hear static. At another, you catch a station. Turn the dial again, and suddenly music fills the room. Did the music suddenly appear from nowhere? No, it was always present, but you had to align with its frequency to hear it. Consciousness works the same way. At one frequency, you experience fear, separation, limitation. Shift the dial, and you experience clarity, unity, expansion. Turn again, and you begin to touch dimensions of love and awareness so profound that your old life feels like static by comparison. This is the energetic reality of the rapture. It is not about leaving Earth. It is about tuning into higher octaves of existence. It is about raising the frequency of your mind, your emotions, your very cells, until the world you once knew feels like a distant memory. You do not disappear. You transform. Nature has been showing us this pattern all along. When water is heated, it does not simply get warmer forever. At a certain threshold, it leaps into another state. It becomes steam. The molecules have not been destroyed. They are vibrating so fast that they shift into a higher form. The boiling point is a perfect metaphor for ascension. You do not need to leave the pot. You simply need to reach the frequency where transformation becomes inevitable. The same principle applies to light. Photons vibrating at lower frequencies are invisible to the human eye. As they speed up, they enter the spectrum of visible light. Push further, and they move into ultraviolet. Nothing has been lost. The frequency has changed. The perception has expanded. The rapture is that moment when your consciousness crosses the threshold into a higher spectrum of awareness, and suddenly you perceive realities that were always present but hidden from your view. Human experience confirms this too. Think of times when your emotional state completely shifted your perception of life. When you were weighed down by fear or anger, everything looked hostile, heavy, bleak. But when you were overflowing with gratitude or love, the same world glowed with meaning. The people you saw looked different. The air felt lighter. Problems that once felt impossible seemed manageable or even irrelevant. What changed? The frequency of your consciousness. The outer world remained the same, but the inner world transformed, and that shift created a new reality. That is the essence of the energetic rapture. This is why so many people searching for signs in the sky have missed the point. The real signs are in the frequencies we embody. If you want to know whether you are approaching the rapture, don't look at the news. Look at your vibration. Are you living in fear, or are you cultivating love? Are you stuck in resentment, or are you opening to forgiveness? Are you weighed down by survival, or are you beginning to taste the freedom of expansion? These choices determine your alignment. They are the dial on the radio of your consciousness. And here is the extraordinary part. Frequency is contagious. Just as one tuning fork can cause another to vibrate, one awakened person can raise the resonance of everyone around them. This is why collective transformation feels possible. As more people raise their frequency, the field shifts. The energy of the planet itself begins to accelerate. The rapture, then, is not just an individual event. It is a collective ascension, a rising tide of consciousness that sweeps through humanity like a wave. Each person who chooses to rise contributes to the momentum of the whole. But it begins personally, and it begins with practices that align your frequency with higher states. Meditation is one. When you sit in stillness, you quiet the static of the mind and allow your energy to settle into coherence. Gratitude is another. When you focus on what is good and beautiful, your vibration rises naturally, like a flame catching oxygen. Compassion is a third. When you open your heart to others, even in small acts, your frequency leaps into a higher octave. These practices are not moral obligations. They are energetic technologies. They are ways of tuning your inner radio to the broadcast of higher dimensions. Skeptics might say this is nothing more than psychology, but even psychology recognizes the power of state. Neurochemistry shifts when you meditate, when you love, when you forgive. The body produces different hormones, the brain fires in different patterns, the heart enters coherence. These are measurable frequencies. The so-called mystical experience is not fantasy. It is a shift of energy that science is only beginning to map. The hidden truth is that the rapture is not an extraordinary violation of natural law. It is the fulfillment of it. It is the flowering of the principle that energy is always in motion, always capable of ascending into higher states. The caterpillar vibrates at one frequency, the butterfly at another, the seed at one, the flower at another, the star at one, the supernova at another. Each transformation is a leap into a higher frequency. Why should human consciousness be any different? This perspective changes the way we approach life. Instead of waiting for an unpredictable day, We begin to cultivate vibrational practices now. Instead of fearing whether we will be chosen, we realize we are always choosing through our energy. Instead of obsessing over signs in the sky, we pay attention to the resonance in our hearts. The question is no longer, when will it happen? The question is, how am I vibrating in this moment? And that question is deeply empowering, because you cannot control cosmic events, but you can control your own state. You can choose to breathe deeply instead of reacting in anger. You can choose to focus on what uplifts instead of what drags you down. You can choose to forgive instead of holding on. Each of these choices is a frequency shift, and each one brings you closer to the energetic threshold of transformation. The energetic reality of the rapture is this: you do not vanish. You ascend. You rise into higher octaves of awareness until the old frequency no longer holds you. To those still vibrating in fear, it may look as though you have disappeared. But in truth, you are still here, just vibrating at a level they cannot yet perceive. Just as a dog hears frequencies we cannot, just as ultraviolet light exists beyond our sight, ascended states of consciousness exist beyond ordinary perception. The rapture is entering that spectrum. And here is the final secret. The universe responds to frequency. When you raise your vibration, life mirrors it back. Opportunities appear. Synchronicities multiply. Healing accelerates. The outer world reorganizes around the inner frequency. This is not magic. It is resonance. And it is the reason why the rapture is not a single day but an ongoing possibility. Every moment you choose love, you tune into a higher reality. Every act of compassion shifts the field. Every meditation is a step into ascension. So let us release the old image of vanishing bodies and spectacles in the sky. Let us embrace the truth that has been waiting beneath the symbol. The rapture is not escape. It is elevation. It is the boiling point of consciousness, the tipping of vibration into a new form. It is the radio dial clicking into a station that was always there, waiting to be heard. It is the leap into frequencies where fear dissolves, love expands, and life reveals dimensions you never knew existed. And it is available now, not tomorrow, not someday, now. The only question left is simple. Will you raise your frequency and step into it? There is a pattern running through every culture, every tradition, every era of human history. People have always spoken about a great awakening, a moment when ordinary perception gives way to something vast, luminous, and beyond words. Some called it enlightenment, others spoke of awakening, still others described it as a knowing of hidden truth. The names differ, but the essence is the same. It is the consciousness shift, and it is the true meaning of what has been disguised under the language of the rapture. When people hear the phrase consciousness shift, it can sound abstract, even vague, but in reality, it is as tangible as the sunrise. Consciousness is the lens through which we experience reality. It colors everything we see, every thought we have, every action we take. And like the lens of a camera, consciousness can expand or contract, focus sharply or blur. A shift in consciousness is not a small adjustment. It is a complete reorientation of how we perceive life itself. It is as if you have been staring at shadows on a wall and suddenly realize there is a whole world outside the cave. Across the world, people have described this same transformation in different ways. Ancient teachers spoke of an awakening from sleep, a sudden remembrance of who and what we truly are. In contemplative traditions, it was described as enlightenment, the dawning of a light that reveals the hidden unity behind all things. In mystical writings, it was called gnosis, a direct knowing of truth that goes beyond belief or doctrine. What is striking is not the diversity of names, but the similarity of experience. The reports echo each other across time and space. The shift feels like being born again into a new dimension of existence. This is the consciousness shift, and it is the heart of what people have been waiting for without realizing it. The great mistake has been to expect it as a cosmic spectacle instead of an inner revolution. But when you look closely, all the stories point to the same possibility. A leap in perception so complete that the world itself seems to transform, even though nothing outward has changed. Nature offers the clearest mirrors of this transformation. Consider the caterpillar. For a time, it crawls along branches, inching its way through life with limited vision and movement. If it were told that one day it would fly, it would not believe it. Nothing in its present experience suggests such a destiny. And yet, at the appointed time, it enters the cocoon, dissolves into formlessness, and re-emerges as a butterfly. The consciousness of the caterpillar cannot comprehend the sky. Only the butterfly can. The shift is not gradual improvement. It is metamorphosis. Or take the seed. Buried in the darkness of soil, it contains within itself the blueprint of something magnificent. But to fulfill that blueprint, it must first crack open, destroying its old identity. The seed does not simply stretch taller until it becomes a flower. It breaks apart, and from that surrender, new life bursts forth. That is the consciousness shift, a complete transformation of form, not just an extension of the old. Even stars undergo this process. When a massive star exhausts its fuel, it does not simply flicker out. It collapses and explodes in a supernova, scattering elements that will become the building blocks of planets, oceans, and life itself. The star dies, but in its death, it gives birth to entire worlds. Consciousness works the same way. The old self must collapse so that a new dimension of self can emerge. The consciousness shift, then, is not just a poetic metaphor. It is a universal pattern. Everything transforms by passing through thresholds. And the rapture, when seen correctly, is nothing more than this universal law expressed in human awareness. It is the point at which the old ways of perceiving dissolve and a new dimension of awareness emerges. But what does this look like in personal terms? Imagine living your entire life believing that you are a separate individual, isolated and alone, defined by your body and your story. Every choice you make is governed by fear of loss or hope of gain. Every action is rooted in survival. Then one day, through meditation or love or sudden insight, you glimpse something larger. You see that you are not separate at all, that your consciousness is interconnected with every other being, that life flows through you as much as it flows through the trees, the rivers, the stars. In that moment, everything shifts. The world looks the same, but you experience it differently. Fear loosens its grip. Compassion rises naturally. Gratitude overflows. That is the consciousness shift. And here is the most important part. It is available to everyone. This is not a privilege of mystics or sages. It is a potential woven into the fabric of being human. Every person has within them the seed of awakening. The difference is whether we nurture it or ignore it, whether we crack open or cling to our old shell. The rapture, understood as the consciousness shift, is not reserved for a chosen few. It is the destiny of all who are willing to release the old and embrace the new. The process begins quietly. It begins in small moments when awareness expands. When you notice your thoughts instead of being trapped inside them, that is a shift. When you step outside your anger and choose compassion, that is a shift. When you look at a stranger and see yourself reflected in their eyes, that is a shift. These small openings accumulate, until one day the dam breaks and the flood of awareness transforms everything. The rapture does not arrive from the sky. It erupts from within. This understanding dissolves fear. Instead of worrying about being left behind, you realize the choice is always in your hands. The consciousness shift is not about being chosen by an external force. It is about choosing yourself, choosing to awaken. No one can do it for you. No one can prevent it from you. It is an inner decision, a willingness to release the old patterns and step into a higher state of being. And the signs of this shift are already visible in the world. More and more people are questioning old assumptions, seeking deeper meaning, exploring practices that open awareness. Meditation, mindfulness, energy work, these are no longer fringe activities. They are entering the mainstream because humanity as a whole is approaching a threshold. The collective consciousness is preparing for a leap, just as individuals do. The chaos and confusion we see around us are the cracking of the old seed. The breakdown is a precursor to the breakthrough. The consciousness shift is not comfortable. Like the caterpillar dissolving in its cocoon, the process can feel like loss, like death. Old identities fall away. Old attachments no longer hold. This is why so many resist it. They cling to what is familiar, even if it is painful. because the unknown feels terrifying. But on the other side of surrender is flight. On the other side of the seeds cracking is the flower. On the other side of collapse is a supernova. The discomfort is not the end. It is the passageway. So what is the practical invitation here? It is to begin preparing yourself now, not by waiting for a cosmic event, but by cultivating the qualities that align you with transformation. Practice awareness. Notice your thoughts, your emotions, your patterns, and realize you are not bound by them. Practice compassion. Every time you choose kindness, you step into a higher frequency. Practice surrender. When life cracks you open, trust that something new is being born. These practices are not preparation for the shift. They are the shift. And as you do this, something extraordinary happens. You begin to notice that the world itself reflects your inner state. People respond differently. Synchronicities increase. The ordinary feels infused with meaning. This is not coincidence. It is resonance. As your consciousness shifts, the reality you experience shifts with it. The outer world becomes a mirror of the inner awakening. This is the hidden truth that was disguised under the language of the rapture. It was never about bodies vanishing into the sky. It was always about awareness vanishing into unity. It was never about leaving the world. It was about seeing the world anew. It was never about an ending. It was about a beginning. The consciousness shift is the true event, and it is unfolding now. So let us stop waiting. Let us stop fearing. Let us stop imagining that we are powerless bystanders in a cosmic drama. The rapture is not out there. It is in here. It is the awakening hidden within every human heart. It is the moment we remember what we are, the moment we see through illusion, the moment we rise in awareness until love becomes our natural state. That is the consciousness shift. That is the awakening. That is the hidden truth waiting to be lived. If the rapture is not a cosmic rescue but a shift of consciousness, then the real question is simple. How do we prepare for it? For too long, the story has encouraged people to wait, to watch the skies, to anticipate a day that might arrive at any moment. But the truth is, waiting has never been the point. Transformation is not something delivered to us from outside. It is something awakened from within. The preparation is not passive. It is active, intimate, and deeply personal. It is the work of aligning ourselves with the frequency of the new reality so that when the shift comes, we are not resisting it but flowing with it. Preparation begins with recognition. You are more than a body, more than a personality, more than the story you tell about yourself. You are a field of consciousness, a living vibration, connected to the greater field of life itself. When you remember this, you stop waiting for someone to lift you out of your circumstances, and you begin raising yourself into higher states of being. The key is alignment. Just as a radio cannot play a station it is not tuned to, you cannot experience higher dimensions of consciousness unless you align with their frequency. And alignment is a practice, a daily cultivation. The first way to prepare is through raising your frequency. Every thought, every emotion, every action vibrates. Fear, anger, jealousy, and attachment all weigh you down, pulling you into the density of separation. Love, compassion, gratitude, and joy lift you upward, attuning you to higher states. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to never feel anger or fear again. But you can begin releasing what no longer serves you and feeding what does. Simple practices help. Meditation stills the static of the mind, allowing your natural frequency to rise. Gratitude shifts your attention from lack to abundance, immediately expanding your resonance. Acts of kindness ripple outward, raising not only your own vibration but the field around you. These are not abstract ideals. They are energetic tools. The second way to prepare is through expanding consciousness. Most people live confined to the physical senses. They believe only what they can see, hear, touch, and measure. But reality is multi-layered, and the physical is only one dimension. Expanding consciousness means learning to sense beyond the obvious. It means recognizing intuition as real, dreams as guidance, synchronicities as communication. It means remembering that you are not separate from the universe but an expression of it. As this awareness grows, You stop feeling like a passenger in life and begin to realize you are a participant in a vast, living whole. Expansion dissolves the illusion of isolation and reveals the unity that has always been there. The third way to prepare is through integration. Awakening is not an escape from daily life. It is a deeper immersion into it. To be raptured is not to vanish from the world, but to see the world with new eyes and act accordingly. That means bringing higher awareness into your relationships, your work, your choices. It means speaking from compassion instead of reaction, creating from inspiration instead of fear, and moving through the world with the quiet confidence that comes from being connected to something greater. Integration is where the lofty ideas of transformation become real. It is where enlightenment meets the grocery store, where meditation meets conversation, where awareness meets the ordinary moments that make up a human life. When preparation is understood this way, it ceases to be a burden and becomes a joy. You are not performing rituals to appease a cosmic judge. You are cultivating practices that make life richer, lighter, freer. Meditation brings peace. Gratitude brings happiness. Compassion brings connection. Awareness brings clarity. These are not chores. They are gifts. Preparing for transformation is, in truth, already living it. It is important to remember that preparation is not about perfection. The seed does not need to know how to bloom before it bursts open. The caterpillar does not need to understand flight before it enters the cocoon. The star does not need to plan its explosion before it becomes a supernova. Transformation follows universal patterns, and you are part of that same universe. Your task is not to control the process but to surrender to it, to trust it, and to align with it as best you can. This shift is not only personal, it is collective. Each person who raises their frequency contributes to the field of humanity as a whole. Just as one candle can light another without losing its flame, one awakened being can ignite awakening in others. Your preparation does not end with you. It ripples outward, touching everyone you encounter. When you forgive, you create space for others to heal. When you show kindness, you inspire others to do the same. When you embody peace, you make peace more possible for the world. Preparing for your transformation is preparing for ours. And here lies the hidden power. The rapture is not waiting in the future. It is already unfolding. Every time you choose love over fear, you step into it. Every time you expand beyond limitation, you live it. Every time you integrate awareness into action, you embody it. Preparation is not something you do before the event. Preparation is the event. You are not waiting for transformation. You are becoming it. The shift is not something to dread or obsess over. It is something to welcome, because on the other side of fear is freedom. On the other side of attachment is love. On the other side of limitation is expansion. Preparing for transformation is simply learning to walk through those doors with open eyes and open hearts. So let us release the idea that we must sit passively, scanning the horizon for a day of deliverance. Let us instead look within, where the true horizon lies. The rapture is not about vanishing from the earth, but about embodying a new earth within ourselves. It is not about being chosen, but about choosing. And that choice is available in every breath, every thought, every act. You do not have to wait. You do not have to wonder if you are worthy. You do not have to hope you will be included. You are already included. The transformation has already begun. The question is not whether it will happen to you, but whether you will embrace it. Preparing for your transformation is nothing more than remembering who you are, aligning with what you love, and living as if the new reality is already here. Because in truth, it is. All along, people have been waiting for a day when everything changes. They have searched the skies, scanned the news, and held their breath for a great event that would lift them from the ordinary into the extraordinary. But the truth has been here the whole time, whispering through language, through nature, through the very patterns of existence. The rapture is not an external rescue but an internal awakening. It is not the end of the world but the rebirth of perception. And it is not far away. It is already here. Living the rapture now means understanding that the shift of consciousness is not a future appointment but a present possibility. The same way a radio does not move across the room when it tunes into a new station, you do not need to leave the earth to enter a higher reality. You simply align with a higher frequency. The higher dimensions of existence are not above your head. They are right here, vibrating just beyond the range of ordinary perception. To enter them is not to travel but to awaken. The greatest secret is that the so-called kingdom has always been within. Every cell of your body already contains the code for transformation. Every breath already carries the potential for awakening. Every act of kindness, every moment of gratitude, every step into compassion is a doorway into that inner kingdom. When you live with love, you are already living the rapture. When you choose awareness over fear, you are already stepping into the new reality. When you embody unity instead of separation, you are already ascending. This understanding changes everything. Instead of fearing whether you will be left behind, you realize no one is excluded. Instead of waiting for a day of deliverance, you realize the invitation is always open. Instead of wondering when the shift will come, you realize the shift is already happening with every choice you make. The rapture is not something you wait for. It is something you participate in. And this participation is simple. You do not need to master esoteric practices or chase endless signs. You only need to align your life with the qualities that already reflect the higher frequency. Love freely, forgive deeply, create joyfully, live mindfully. Each of these is a step into the inner kingdom. Each of these is a taste of rapture. The more you practice them, the more the new reality takes root, until one day you look around and realize you are living in it. The world itself may not change overnight, but your perception of it will. And as more individuals awaken, the collective field begins to shift. What once felt like a hopeless struggle becomes a rising tide of transformation. What once looked like chaos reveals itself as the breaking of old shells so that something new can emerge. What once felt like the end begins to feel like a beginning. This is the power of living the rapture now. Your awakening becomes part of a wave that carries us all forward. There will still be challenges. The caterpillar does not become a butterfly without dissolving. The seed does not bloom without breaking open. The star does not give birth to new worlds without collapse. In the same way, humanity may experience turbulence as the old ways fall apart. But this is not something to fear. It is something to understand. The breakdown is the passageway to the breakthrough. The discomfort is the sign of transformation underway. So how do you live the rapture now in the midst of ordinary life? You live it by bringing awareness into the small moments. When you feel fear rising, pause and breathe. Choose love instead. When you feel anger pulling you down, notice it and let compassion lift you higher. When you feel the weight of limitation pressing on you, remind yourself that you are not a prisoner of circumstance but a participant in consciousness. These are not small acts. They are seismic shifts. They are the building blocks of ascension. And as you live this way, you begin to realize that the rapture was never about escaping the earth but about redeeming it. The transformation is not about abandoning the physical world but about infusing it with higher awareness. Every smile, every kindness, every creative act is a piece of heaven woven into earth. The rapture is not about departure. It is about embodiment. It is about living as if the inner kingdom is already here, because it is. In the end, the great mystery turns out to be simple. The rapture is not an event you wait for. It is a choice you make. It is not a date on the calendar. It is a frequency you align with. It is not something that happens to you. It is something that happens through you. The question is no longer, will I be taken? The question is, will I awaken? And that choice is before you right now. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now. With every thought, every breath, every act, you are tuning the dial of your consciousness. You can stay in the static of fear, or you can tune into the broadcast of love. You can remain in the illusion of separation, or you can step into the awareness of unity. You can wait for the sky to open, or you can open your own heart. The rapture is not a future promise. It is a present invitation. So let us stop waiting. Let us stop fearing. Let us stop imagining that transformation is beyond our reach. The kingdom is within. The rapture is now. The awakening is already here, waiting for you to embrace it. Every moment you choose love, you step into it. Every act of compassion, you embody it. Every breath of awareness, you live it. The only question left is this: will you accept the invitation?